It started quietly, like fatigue that had become a second skin. Mornings used to feel alive. Now they felt heavy. The mirror reflected a man who was doing everything right, eating healthy, working out, cutting sugar, keeping portions light. Yet somehow, the stubborn ring around the waist refused to budge. Energy dipped mid-morning, cravings roared in the afternoon, and sleep, once easy, turned into restless cycles of tossing between hunger and fullness. For months, the scale mocked him. The harder he pushed, the less his body responded. It wasn't vanity anymore. It was confusion. What am I missing? Then came the blood work. Glucose slightly high, fasting insulin creeping upward, triglycerides edging into warning range. The doctor mentioned insulin resistance in passing, the same way someone might mention the weather. But that single phrase clung to the mind like a riddle waiting to be solved. Later that night, under the sterile light of a laptop, the research began. One phrase kept reappearing: metabolic rhythm. Not just what you eat, but when. Could timing really matter more than content? He read about circadian biology, how the body's internal clock orchestrates hormones and digestion, how cells respond differently to food depending on the hour. Morning insulin sensitivity higher, evening sensitivity lower. In plain terms, the same bowl of rice at night stores more easily as fat than it does in daylight. It sounded like pseudoscience until the studies appeared. Clinical trials showing that people eating the same calories earlier lost more weight than those eating later. Another experiment: identical meals consumed at breakfast versus dinner triggered wildly different glucose curves. The morning meal led to a smooth rise and fall. The evening one, a sharp spike followed by a sluggish drop. A pattern emerged: carb-timing. The very nutrient demonized in every diet, carbohydrates, wasn't the enemy. It was the context, when, how, and what it was paired with. He decided to test it. For 7 days, the goal would be simple: eat carbs strategically. Fuel when the body is ready, restrain when it's winding down. Track everything: energy, hunger, mood. Day 1, the same oatmeal breakfast that always felt healthy. Within an hour, brain fog. The glucose monitor showed a mountain peak: spike, crash, fatigue. Lunch was light, but loaded with white rice. Another crash. The day felt like wading through syrup. Day 2, this time, protein first. Eggs, avocado, then oats. The spike flattened. Energy lasted through the morning. That night, curiosity mixed with disbelief. Could something this simple change everything? As days passed, meals shifted earlier. Carbs became companions to activity. Post-workout fuel, not bedtime comfort. Evenings turned lighter, filled with greens and fish. Slowly, the body responded. Belly softer, mind clearer, sleep deeper. But beneath every physical change was something subtler: a sense of harmony. Hunger cues aligned with energy cycles. No more late-night raids for sweetness. No more morning guilt. Still, the scientist within demanded understanding. Why does carb timing wield such power? To answer that, he dived deeper into metabolism's choreography. Every human body dances to an invisible metronome, the circadian rhythm. It governs cortisol at dawn, melatonin at dusk, digestive enzyme release, cellular repair. Insulin too follows this beat. In daylight, cells are alert, ready to absorb glucose and store it as glycogen for fuel. After sunset, the same signal feels intrusive. The body shifts toward rest and fat storage. Eating against this rhythm forces metabolism to juggle conflicting messages: rest versus digest. Over time, the imbalance accumulates as belly fat, fatigue, and hormonal resistance. It isn't punishment, it's miscommunication. The revelation struck like lightning. The battle wasn't about discipline, it was about alignment. For years, diet culture had shouted, "Eat less, move more." But the body was whispering, "Eat with me, not against me." He began experimenting with carb windows, most carbohydrates within 6 hours of waking. Breakfast became the anchor, lunch the support, dinner the minimalist coda. Instead of deprivation, it felt like rhythm. Each morning, energy rose naturally. Workouts felt charged, not forced. The midday slump vanished. This wasn't a fad. It was physiology in sync. Yet, transformation stories rarely move in straight lines. By week 3, cravings struck back. Late nights at work reintroduced the temptation of snacks, granola bars, instant noodles. The next morning, bloat returned, sleep broke, fatigue reemerged. Proof of concept. One night of mistimed eating was enough to blur the clarity built over days. But rather than discouragement, it brought understanding. The body wasn't broken, it was responsive. It listened immediately to choices, rewarding alignment, reacting to disruption. That responsiveness became motivation, because if the body reacts this quickly to misalignment, it must also reward consistency with equal immediacy. And so the journey deepened, not toward restriction, but toward awareness. Carbs were no longer villains or heroes. They were instruments in a larger symphony. The question became not, should I eat them? But when will they serve me best? As the days unfolded, patterns emerged. Morning carbs, teach energy and clarity. Afternoon carbs, calm and focus. Nighttime carbs, cravings and restlessness. The rhythm was obvious once seen, but unseen, it had dictated years of confusion. In reflection, he realized how modern life conspires against this natural order. We wake before dawn, sleep past midnight, graze under artificial light. Our ancestors, bound by sun and soil, never faced this dilemma. They hunted, gathered, feasted, and fasted in rhythm with daylight. Their metabolism evolved for the rise and fall of the sun. Ours now lives in perpetual daylight, always on. Technology outpaced biology, but perhaps awareness could bridge that gap. The next morning, standing before a window glazed with sunlight, he made a quiet promise, not of diet or discipline, but of respect. For the first time, breakfast wasn't rushed or guilty. It was deliberate. A plate balanced. Eggs, greens, a small portion of sourdough. Carbs, but timed. Not rebellion. Relationship. The voice in the narration softens here, transitioning from frustration into understanding. The carb-timing secret isn't a rule, it's a rhythm. It doesn't forbid, it harmonizes, it doesn't punish, it teaches. And as the rhythm takes hold, weight begins to follow energy rather than the other way around. The belly softens, not because calories vanished, but because cortisol calmed. Inflammation eased, digestion synchronized, sleep deepened. Weight loss, it turned out, wasn't the goal. It was the signal that the body had returned to balance. The next phase of the journey wasn't about habit anymore. It was about understanding. Because behind every meal, every craving, every surge of energy and crash of exhaustion, lies a choreography of hormones, enzymes, and cellular messengers. And the more he learned, the more one truth echoed. We've been taught to eat in isolation from time itself. He sat with a notebook and a cup of coffee, the early sun slanting through the blinds. The page filled with words like insulin, cortisol, leptin, ghrelin. Each one, once abstract, now pulsed with relevance. These were not distant biochemical terms. They were the hidden conductors of his daily experience: hunger, energy, mood. When he used to eat late dinners heavy in rice or bread, the glucose monitor told a silent story. The spike stretched for hours into the night, barely falling by dawn. It was as if the metabolism had clocked out for the day, leaving the body's repair crew idle. Sleep, meant to restore, now became a metabolic battle. Instead of fat being burned, it was stored. Instead of melatonin leading to rest, it collided with insulin, sending mixed signals of sleep and store. The next morning's fatigue wasn't laziness, it was physiology out of sync. He started tracing back the origins of this pattern. For most of human history, carbohydrates weren't a constant luxury. they appeared seasonally. Fruit in summer, roots in autumn, always accompanied by physical labor and sunlight. The circadian rhythm evolved around this natural cycle. Activity and carbs in daylight, fasting and repair in darkness. But modern life broke that cycle. We eat under fluorescent lights, at desks, in cars, at midnight on screens that mimic the sun. We've replaced seasons with availability, and in that abundance, the body lost its anchor. The question was no longer, why do carbs make us fat? It was, why do mistimed carbs confuse our biology so deeply? The answer, he discovered, lay in insulin sensitivity. Imagine your cells as doors, and insulin as the key. In the morning, those doors open easily. Your body's natural rhythm expects fuel to begin the day. But as evening approaches, the locks tighten. The same key now struggles to open them. Eat a bowl of pasta at noon, and glucose glides smoothly into muscles, fueling movement and thought. Eat it at 10 p.m., and the doors resist. Glucose lingers in the bloodstream, prompting more insulin, which eventually nudges it toward fat storage. It isn't a punishment, it's protection. The body is saying, we don't need energy now. It's time to rest. But in a world where late-night dinners, snacks, and indulgent screens are the norm, we override that message daily. And over months, years, that chronic override becomes resistance. Insulin, once gentle, must shout to be heard. And when insulin shouts, the body stores fat, especially visceral fat, the kind that tightens around the belly. One afternoon, while watching the monitor trace gentle glucose lines across the screen, he realized something profound. The belly wasn't the problem, it was the signal. That stubborn waistline was his body's way of asking for rhythm, for silence between meals, for balance between light and dark. He closed his laptop and stood by the window, watching the city pulse. People rushing, eating, scrolling, each one trapped in the same modern dissonance. And he thought, we've lost the feeling of metabolic music. That evening, instead of a heavy dinner, he made a plate of grilled salmon, greens, and a drizzle of olive oil. He watched the sunset and ate slowly, allowing the body to interpret the message. Day is ending. You are safe. The next morning, he woke before the alarm. Light, alert, alive. The science was working, but so was something deeper. Trust. Because timing carbs wasn't about control. It was about communication. Each choice, from the order of foods to the time of the last bite, was a sentence in an ongoing conversation with his metabolism. And that conversation was finally becoming fluent. He learned the principle of carb pairing, the art of slowing glucose absorption by anchoring every carbohydrate with protein, fiber, or fat. Oatmeal was no longer a solo act. It was joined by Greek yogurt and nuts. Rice found its balance beside chicken and vegetables. Even fruit, nature's sweetest creation, became a companion to almond butter or cottage cheese. The science was simple, yet profound. Protein triggers glucagon, balancing insulin. Fat delays gastric emptying, flattening the glucose curve. Fiber binds to carbohydrates, slowing digestion like a traffic light, easing congestion. The result? A smooth, gentle glucose rhythm. No roller coaster highs, no sudden crashes. And with each balanced meal, his energy stopped swinging. The afternoon fog lifted. Work felt focused. Even his mood stabilized. No more irritability before lunch or restlessness before bed. The scale began to shift, subtly but steadily. Not the erratic drops of crash diets, but the graceful descent of a system finding equilibrium. Weeks later, something curious happened. The experiment was over, but the habit stayed. Not by discipline, by desire. Breakfast became a quiet ritual, sunlight spilling across the counter. Lunch was fuel, not escape. Dinner was lighter, peaceful, ending before the body turned toward night. There was freedom in structure, ease in rhythm. He began to see how timing wasn't only about food, it was about everything. When you align meals with movement, rest with darkness, and effort with daylight, the body stops fighting. It starts flowing. Weight loss, energy, mental clarity. They weren't goals anymore. They were symptoms of alignment. That shift changed everything, because the secret wasn't about cutting carbs. It was about understanding them. Carbs were never the villain. They were misunderstood and mistimed. He thought about all the people who had blamed themselves for fatigue, cravings, and stubborn fat. All the mornings they'd woken up promising to do better. All the nights they'd ended feeling defeated. And he wanted to tell them, it's not your lack of willpower. It's your biology asking for rhythm. Eat when your body is most ready. Rest when it asks for peace. Move when energy feels full. That's the unspoken science of timing and the unlearned art of self-trust. By the third month, the transformation wasn't only physical. It was in the face that looked back from the mirror. Clearer eyes, calmer breath, a quiet confidence that replaced the anxious self-monitoring of before. And when friends asked what diet he was on, he smiled. It's not a diet, he said. It's timing. The next morning, he returned to that first page in his notebook. The words, "The Carb-Timing Secret," stared back, underlined months ago in hope. Now they felt less like a secret and more like a memory. Something ancient, something we'd always known but forgotten. A truth simple enough to be lost in the noise. When you eat in rhythm with your body, you stop fighting it. Narration pauses gently, breathing space in the soundtrack, ambient sounds of morning light and quiet resolve. This is where science meets self-awareness, where the clock and the plate become partners, where transformation begins not in the gym or the mirror, but in the moment you decide to listen. And listening, that's the real beginning of balance. By now, the rhythm had become second nature. Meals no longer felt like calculations or negotiations. They felt like conversations, moments of alignment with something older and wiser inside. The mirror no longer told the story. The mornings did. There was a lightness, not just in weight, but in being. The fatigue that once lived in the eyes was gone, replaced by a quiet alertness. The cravings that used to strike mid-afternoon had dulled into gentle signals, easily understood. The body, once an unpredictable machine, had become a partner. This was not a miracle. It was biology remembered. He began to notice the rhythm of everything else. The way the sun stretched across the kitchen counter at the same time every morning. The way hunger rose in sync with daylight. How calm descended when the sky dimmed. The more he aligned with nature's tempo, the more his body rewarded him with clarity. Science could explain part of it. Improved insulin sensitivity, stable cortisol cycles, increased fat oxidation. But the rest was something language struggled to name. Metabolic peace. The experiment that began with frustration had evolved into a philosophy, a way of seeing food not as enemy or savior, but as energy and time. He thought back to the lab reports, the graphs, the old sense of defeat, that feeling of doing everything right, yet watching the scale refuse to move. What he didn't know then was that weight was never the truest signal of health. It was only the surface echo of deeper harmony. Once glucose stabilized, everything else followed. Sleep deepened, energy rose naturally. The mind grew quiet, cravings lost their power, and fat, that stubborn layer around the belly, began to dissolve. Not because it was forced to, but because it was no longer needed. To understand why, he revisited the biology one last time. Not from a place of anxiety, but reverence. When blood sugar swings wildly, insulin stays elevated. High insulin traps fat within storage cells, locking away energy. The brain, sensing a shortage, demands more food, creating hunger even when calories are abundant. But when blood sugar steadies, insulin relaxes. Fat, once trapped, is freed. The body returns to its natural state, a dynamic rhythm of using and storing, ebbing and flowing. And this rhythm, when nurtured, transforms everything. He remembered his earlier self, the man chasing diets, cutting carbs, fearing food, and he smiled softly. Because that man didn't need stricter rules. He needed trust. Trust that the body knows when to eat, when to move, when to rest. Trust that food is not the enemy, but information. Trust that rhythm, not restriction, is the real cure. The secret wasn't hidden in macros or apps or supplements. It was hidden in time. As months passed, he began to share the story. Friends who'd been stuck in the same loop, late night eating, morning guilt, endless fatigue, started trying small changes. Walking after dinner, front-loading carbs earlier in the day, pairing fruit with protein. They came back with stories that echoed his own. Sleep feels different. My mind is clear again. I don't crave sugar anymore. What began as an experiment had become a quiet movement, a return to balance. And yet, beneath the science and success, a more profound realization took root. This wasn't just about food. It was about attention. For years, he had moved through life distracted, multitasking through meals, scrolling through moments, mistiming not just his nutrition, but his presence. Balancing blood sugar was never only about glucose. It was about reclaiming awareness. Every mindful bite, every walk after dinner, every moment of respect for rhythm. It wasn't just healing the metabolism. It was healing the relationship between self and life. Because to truly align with time, one must be in time. And that realization became the emotional heartbeat of his journey. When you eat in rhythm with your body, you begin to live in rhythm with the world. Morning becomes a time of light and fuel. Afternoon becomes productivity and creation. Evening becomes reflection and rest. Carbs, once the symbol of temptation, become symbols of trust. They remind you that energy is meant to be used, not hoarded. When eaten with intention, they fuel movement, focus, laughter, connection. When mistimed, they weigh you down, not as punishment, but as reminder. In one of the final journal entries he wrote, the words flowed easily. Carbs are not bad. They are timing made tangible. The sun on a plate, the energy of the earth captured in grains and fruits. The problem is not the food. It's our forgetting of the clock within. He underlined it twice. That sentence, more than any study or statistic, carried the truth he had been chasing all along. By the time he returned for a new round of lab tests, the numbers spoke clearly. Glucose normalized, triglycerides down, waistline reduced, but more importantly, vitality restored. The doctor smiled. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. He just nodded, knowing that what he was doing wasn't a plan, it was listening. Listening to his body's language, one meal at a time. The film of his transformation would end here. A slow montage. Morning sunlight breaking across calm water, a walk through the park, laughter at a dinner table lit with real food and conversation. Not screens. No dramatic voice. No countdowns. No before and after. Just a man who had stopped fighting and started flowing. The narration softens to a whisper now. Intimate, reflective. We live in an age that worships intensity. Extreme diets, relentless schedules, constant noise. But the body doesn't thrive on extremes. It thrives on consistency, on rhythm, on breath, on time. When you feed it with respect, it rewards you with clarity. When you listen to its rhythm, it gifts you peace. And perhaps that's the truest secret of all. Health isn't found in the next breakthrough, but in the quiet rediscovery of what we already are. Cyclical, rhythmic, deeply connected beings designed to move with the world, not against it. So, if you take one thing from this story, let it be this. Don't fear your food. Don't wage war against your body. Instead, learn its rhythm. Eat your carbs when your body can dance with them. In the light, in motion, in gratitude. Let evening be a time of stillness and repair. Give your body the silence it needs to reset. Do this long enough, and you'll feel something subtle, but unmistakable. A hum beneath your skin. A sense of being tuned again to life itself. And one day, without fanfare, you'll look in the mirror and realize the belly is gone. But more importantly, so is the heaviness. The one that had nothing to do with weight. In its place stands someone lighter, freer, and finally, fully awake. Because when you learn to eat in rhythm with your biology, you don't just lose fat, you lose confusion. You lose the noise, you lose the war between mind and body. And in that quiet space that remains, you rediscover what health was always meant to be. Not control, but connection. Not fear, but trust. Not perfection, but peace. Soft ambient score swells. Sunrise over a quiet city. The pulse of life in harmony. This is not the end of a diet story. It's the beginning of a relationship. With food, with time, with yourself. Because the truth was never about cutting carbs. The truth was learning when to let them in. And once you master that rhythm, you don't just change your body, you change the way you live inside it.